The moment that changed everything, it was a quiet Tuesday evening. The kind of shift that dragged on slowly for the waitstaff at Brookline Diner. A cozy but worn-out place nestled on the edge of a busy downtown intersection. The neon sign outside flickered a little, tired like the feet of those working inside. Amber, a 24-year-old waitress with a soft voice and a tired smile, pulled her apron tighter around her waist as she checked table 4 for the third time that night. No one had come in yet, but something in the air felt different, charged like the kind of night where something big was about to happen. She hadn't slept much the night before. Her daughter, Lily, only 4 years old, had cried all night with a fever. Amber didn't have money for proper medicine, so she crushed aspirin into applesauce and hoped it would be enough. Her rent was overdue by 2 weeks. The manager had already warned her that if tips didn't pick up, she'd lose more than her apartment. She might lose the only job keeping her afloat. As she cleaned the counter and refilled the ketchup bottles, the bell above the door rang. Amber looked up, expecting a regular, maybe one of the tired cab drivers or the always hungry security guard from across the street. But it wasn't. A tall man in a black hoodie and a faded cap walked in, head down, quiet with a calmness that filled the room. She didn't recognize him at first, not until he sat at the booth by the window and pulled off his cap. Her heart skipped a beat. Keanu Reeves. Not in a movie, not in a magazine. Right there, in her diner, in her section. For a second, she just stared, her tray shaking slightly in her hands. She had grown up watching him on screen. His movies were something she used to watch with her dad before he passed. He was her childhood hero, a symbol of quiet strength and kind eyes. Now here he was, looking for nothing more than a simple meal. She walked over, heart pounding in her chest. "Hi. Welcome to Brookline Diner," she said, her voice almost cracking. He looked up with a soft smile like he'd known her forever. "Hey. Mind if I sit here a while?" She nodded, trying not to stare. "Of course, take your time." He glanced at the menu. "I'll just have the grilled cheese and tomato soup, please, and a cup of coffee." "Black." She wrote it down quickly and turned around, trying to process what just happened. In the kitchen, she whispered to the cook, who nearly dropped his ladle in shock. When she returned with his coffee, Keanu thanked her with the same sincerity he might offer a world leader. He looked tired, a little worn, like someone who'd been carrying a lot alone. Still, he asked her name, listened when she spoke, and didn't look at his phone once. For the first time in weeks, Amber felt like someone saw her, not just as a waitress, but as a person. They chatted a little. She told him about her daughter, carefully leaving out the parts about the fever, the overdue rent, and the eviction, notice folded in her apron pocket. He listened, nodded, and smiled softly. After the meal, she brought the check, hands slightly trembling. He looked at it, smiled, and pulled out some cash. She noticed he added a decent tip, generous but not extravagant, but then something strange happened. He reached into his jacket pocket again and pulled out a small folded receipt. He wrote something on the back, placed it under his coffee cup, and gave her one final smile before standing up. "Thank you, Amber," he said. "You've got a beautiful heart. Don't forget that." He walked out before she could respond. When she picked up the receipt, her knees nearly gave out. Under the cup, it said, "I know you're struggling. This is not a tip. This is a reminder that you matter. Behind this, there's a number. Call it. Tell them Keanu sent you." Taped to the back was a $50 bill. Tears welled up in her eyes. She wasn't sure what the number was for. A shelter? A program? Maybe just someone he trusted to help. But it wasn't the money that made her cry. It was the thoughtfulness. The fact that he saw her pain without her saying a word. But what she didn't know, what no one could have expected, was that someone else had been sitting just a few booths away, unnoticed. He had a baseball cap pulled low and sunglasses on, eating quietly while everyone stared at Keanu. It was Elon Musk, and he had been watching the entire interaction. He didn't say anything then, didn't make himself known. But the next day, Amber's life would change in a way she never imagined. The call, the silence, and the spotlight. Amber stood behind the counter long after Keanu Reeves had left. The folded receipt and the crisp $50 bill rested in her hand like something out of a dream. She stared at the number he had written on the back. No name. Just a series of digits and the words, "Tell them Keanu sent you." She didn't move for several minutes. She thought about the landlord's voice on the voicemail, the medicine she couldn't afford, and Lily's weak voice asking if they'd be okay. Maybe this number would lead to nothing. Maybe it was a dead end, but maybe it was something more. Amber took a deep breath, stepped outside into the cool night air and dialed. It rang once, twice. Then a voice answered. Calm, warm, professional. Hello, Phoenix Foundation. She hesitated. Hi. I was told to call this number. By Keanu Reeves. He said to tell you he sent me. There was a pause. A very long pause. Then the voice changed slightly, like something clicked. Thank you for calling. Can you tell me your name, ma'am? Amber. Amber Wilcox. Another pause. Keys clacked on a keyboard in the background. Amber. Okay. We've been expecting you. Her eyes widened. What? Please check your email. If you don't see anything now, give it 5 minutes. We've just sent you something. What is this? Mr. Reeves set up an emergency support registry. We handle certain cases personally, and he asked that if you ever called, we should help without delay. Her hands were trembling again, but for a different reason now. She ran back into the diner, grabbed her phone from under the register, and refreshed her inbox. There it was. Subject line. We believe in you, Amber. Inside was an official-looking message from the Phoenix Foundation. It said they would be covering her rent for the next 3 months, delivering medicine for Lily the next morning, and offering her a chance to apply for a single mom scholarship program that could train her in hospitality management. It was all real. There were even signatures and contact info. Amber nearly dropped the phone. She stared at the screen, lips parted in shock, heart thudding in her chest. She didn't know how to react. She sat down on the staff bench in the break room and cried quietly into her hands. It wasn't just the help. It was the feeling of being seen, of someone out there believing in her, of a man like Keanu Reeves not just tipping her but reaching into her life and pulling her back from the edge. What she didn't know was that, across the street, in the tinted black SUV parked beside the diner's lot, Elon Musk sat with his tablet in hand, rewatching the footage from earlier. He had his assistant record everything quietly while they had dinner. He wasn't spying. He was observing, and what he saw had shaken him. Elon had come to the diner to escape, to blend in for a while, after a stressful meeting about his companies. He didn't expect to witness something so raw, so human. He didn't expect to feel anything. But he did. It wasn't just the tip or the foundation. It was how Keanu had seen Amber when no one else had. Elon whispered to himself. That's the kind of story the world forgets to tell. The next morning, Amber woke up to a knock at her door. It was 7 a.m. She was wearing an old hoodie, hair messy, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Lily was curled up in a blanket on the couch, still warm with fever. Outside her door stood a woman in a blue blazer with a medical delivery bag and a clipboard. Miss Amber Wilcox? Yes? We're from the Phoenix Foundation. Mr. Reeves asked that we rush this to you. The bag contained children's fever medicine, food vouchers, and even a small teddy bear with a note tucked into its ribbon. Amber's eyes filled again. Thank you, she whispered. This is just the beginning, the woman replied. You're not alone anymore. The news started spreading that day. First, it was a local blogger who had seen Keanu at the diner and posted about it. Then someone inside the foundation leaked that a young mother was receiving help. By afternoon, Amber's name was trending on Twitter. Her story was being shared by thousands. The headline was simple but powerful. Waitress gets help from Keanu Reeves after quiet night shift. Kindness goes viral. But what no one expected was Elon's move. By evening, Amber got a call from a blocked number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello? A pause. Then, hello, Amber. This is Elon Musk. Her legs almost gave out. She didn't know what to say. She thought it was a prank. I was there, at the diner. I saw everything, he said calmly. You didn't notice. Me, that's okay, most don't. She said nothing, breath frozen. What you did, how you carried yourself, how you kept working despite the struggle, that inspired me. And what Keanu did, it reminded me that wealth means nothing if we don't use it to lift people. He paused again. I'd like to help, but only if you're comfortable. Amber blinked, speechless. I've just created something new. A fund. It's small for now, but it's focused on helping people like you. Quiet fighters, single parents, people forgotten by the system. I want you to be the first recipient, and if you're willing, the first face of it. Tears rolled down her cheeks, not from shock this time, but from hope. She whispered, Why me? Elon's voice softened. Because the world needs to remember what grace under pressure looks like, and you're the definition of that. The next day, Amber was scheduled for an interview. Not on a gossip show, not in a tabloid. It was CNN, then BBC, and after that, Ellen. People began reaching out to her from all over the world. Other single moms, struggling waiters, even big names who had once been in her shoes. But Amber stayed grounded. She still showed up at Brookline Diner, still poured coffee, still smiled at strangers. Only now, people smiled back, and she carried something inside her she hadn't felt in years. Dignity. But this was just the beginning. What happened next would test her spirit, her privacy, and her purpose. Because not everyone liked the attention she was getting. Not everyone believed her story, and someone from her past wasn't done with her yet. When the past knocks loudly, Amber sat at the small kitchen table in her apartment, staring at the papers that had just been delivered. Her daughter, Lily, was coloring quietly in the next room, the new teddy bear from the Phoenix Foundation tucked under her arm. Everything around Amber had changed so fast. Just days ago, she was worrying about groceries and rent. Now, she was preparing for a live interview on national television. Cameras, makeup, flashing lights. But these papers, this envelope, this wasn't from a network or charity. It had no return address, no logo, just her name in cold black ink. Inside was a single sentence typed in block letters. You can pretend all you want, but we know the truth. There was no signature. Her hands shook. For a moment, it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. The warmth from Lily's laughter disappeared. The quiet joy she had started to feel collapsed into a shadow of fear. Amber had tried hard to bury her past. It wasn't a secret filled with scandal or crime, but it was painful. She hadn't seen her ex-husband in 3 years, not since he stormed out the night Lily got sick and never came back. He left them with unpaid bills and broken promises, but worse than that was the silence, the void, the shame. Now, as her story was spreading across the internet, she feared he, or someone connected to him, was resurfacing. She folded the note and placed it in a drawer, locking it away. She didn't want this to destroy what was just beginning to bloom. The next morning, she was picked up by a sleek black car. The driver smiled warmly and opened the door for her. Inside the car was a small card with a handwritten message. Breathe. You've already survived the worst. This is just the world catching up to your strength. K.R. Keanu's initials, she, pressed the note to her chest and closed her eyes. At the television studio, Amber was overwhelmed by lights and movement. Assistants brushed her hair. Makeup artists touched her face. Producers explained camera angles. She smiled nervously, hands fidgeting in her lap. When the host entered and greeted her, she tried her best to stay calm. The cameras rolled. The red light blinked, and just like that, her story was live. Amber, tell us what happened that night, the host asked. Amber recounted everything, the shift, the soup, the handwritten note, the $50 that meant more than money. How Keanu's act of kindness led to the Phoenix Foundation, and how Elon Musk had called her the next day. The audience was quiet, leaning in, hanging on every word. But near the end, the host asked a question she wasn't prepared for. And Amber, what would you say to those online who claim this story is too good to be true? Amber blinked. Some people say things like this don't happen, that you knew Keanu already, that maybe this was planned. Amber's voice caught in her throat. Her fingers gripped the arm of the chair. She looked into the camera, her heart pounding. I don't blame anyone for doubting, she said softly. I know what the internet is like, but this wasn't planned. I didn't know Keanu. I didn't ask for any of this. I was just doing my job, surviving, and someone kind saw me. She paused. That night I was a person standing on the edge. Not visibly. Not in some dramatic way, but quietly. I was drowning inside, and someone chose to see that instead of looking away. The host nodded, visibly moved. The segment ended, with applause. Real, warm, and honest. But as Amber stepped out of the studio and checked her phone, her heart sank again. Someone had posted an old photo of her and her ex-husband. A photo from happier times, long before he left. The caption read, Waitress, cries poor but hides her real life. Guess who this is? The comments were brutal. She played everyone. No wonder she looked camera ready. Must be nice acting broke when you have Hollywood friends. Her hands trembled as she read through the lies. She walked quickly, back to the car, tears starting to fall. The driver glanced at her but said nothing. She appreciated that. She needed space to think. Later that night, she received a message request on her phone. She almost ignored it. But something about the name stopped her. Simon Wilcox, her ex. She stared at it for minutes, then she opened it. So this is what you're doing now? Telling the world I left you with nothing? You think that makes you a hero? Don't forget, Amber, I still have the recordings. I still have the truth. Her blood turned cold. Recordings? What truth? Her mind raced. Back then, when they fought, he sometimes recorded her without her knowledge, sometimes to use against her, sometimes to manipulate her. What was he planning now? Her phone rang. It was a number she didn't know. Hello? She answered. A voice, sharp and cold, responded. We represent Simon Wilcox. He has certain materials that could cause damage to your reputation and to the foundation supporting you. Unless you agree to a settlement, he is prepared to go public. Amber sat down, gripping the edge of the table. What kind of settlement? He wants a payment of $50,000, otherwise tomorrow morning the world hears his side. Her chest tightened. Tears built behind her eyes again. She didn't have $50 to spare, let alone $50,000. And worse, she didn't even know what these recordings were. Were they real? Were they edited? But she knew one thing. She wasn't going to be bullied again. She hung up, took a deep breath. Then, for the first time in years, she made a call not out of fear, but out of strength. She called the only person who had been in her corner since the beginning, Keanu. His assistant answered. Amber, Wilcox is calling, she said, just a moment. And then his voice. Calm. Steady. Amber. I'm here. Her voice cracked. He's trying to destroy me. Keanu didn't ask who. He didn't ask how. He just said, then let's show him what happens when kindness fights back. The storm. Before the light, Amber sat on the floor of her living room, knees pulled up to her chest as Lily slept peacefully in the next room. The apartment was silent, but her thoughts were loud. Her heart was still pounding from the call, the threat, and the pressure of the world suddenly watching her. It wasn't the fame that scared her. It was the lies, and worse, the fear that people would believe them. The doorbell rang. She hesitated, then opened it. A woman in a sleek black suit stood there with a small earpiece, eyes alert and calm. Miss Wilcox, she said. I've been sent by Mr. Reeves. My name is Cassie. I'm part of his personal security and crisis team. May I come in? Amber stepped aside silently. Cassie walked in and scanned the room. She wasn't just security. She carried herself like someone trained to handle storms. You're in the middle of something big now, she said softly. But you don't have to go through it alone. Mr. Reeves has asked me to coordinate with you directly. We've already begun an internal investigation on your ex-husband. We're also reviewing the supposed recordings he claims to have. Amber blinked in disbelief. Why would Keanu do all this? Cassie smiled gently. Because he believes in protecting people who've been hurt too many times. Cassie opened her laptop, connected to the Wi-Fi, and pulled up a file. It showed screenshots of social media posts and legal documents. Among them, an affidavit from someone named Jake Lawson. Amber gasped. Jake was her ex-husband's cousin. He used to come over, always quiet, always watching. The affidavit said Simon had lied, that he fabricated stories, that he once said, "One day I'll ruin her if she ever leaves me." Amber covered her mouth. "This is real," she whispered. Cassie nodded. "Yes, and that's just the beginning." She handed Amber a folder. Inside were pictures, bank transactions, and messages between Simon and a man who claimed he could manipulate media coverage for money. "We're preparing a full legal case," Cassie said. "You won't have to fight him alone anymore." Amber's hands trembled, not from fear, but from a new feeling. Relief, strength, dignity. But the next day brought a twist no one expected. Amber was getting ready for an interview with a family magazine when her phone buzzed with a news alert. Man claims viral Waitress story is a scam, demands public apology, and threatens lawsuit. Her ex had gone public. He posted clips, short videos of old fights, edited to make her look angry, unstable. The internet lit up with opinions. Some believed her, others doubted her. Hashtags trended both ways. Justice for Amber. Waitress's Cam Keanu called that night. His voice was warm, steady as always. "I know it's a lot," he said, "but this will pass. People forget noise, they remember truth." Amber's voice cracked. "What if they don't believe me?" Keanu paused, then said, "Then we remind them. Not with arguments, but with action." That same night, Elon Musk released a surprise video on his platform. He sat behind a simple desk, no dramatic background. "Hi, I'm Elon Musk," he said. "A few days ago I saw something that reminded me of what matters. I saw a woman trying to stay strong for her child. I saw kindness. Not for show, but real, quiet kindness. From a man who didn't ask for attention, and a woman who didn't ask for pity." He looked into the camera. Amber Wilcox didn't seek fame. She didn't manipulate anyone. But she reminded the world of something we're losing: empathy. He paused. "I will personally support her legal defense, her privacy, and her safety. And to anyone trying to profit off her pain, you should know this is not just her story anymore, it's ours." The video went viral instantly. Overnight, public opinion shifted back. People shared their own stories of being doubted, of being told to stay quiet. Amber's inbox flooded with messages, not of hate, but of love. People told her she gave them hope. The next morning, Amber woke up to find news vans parked outside her building again. But this time, they weren't hunting scandal. They were covering the announcement of a new nonprofit. The Amber Fund, launched by Keanu Reeves and Elon Musk, to help single parents and workers in crisis. Keanu showed up at the press event, calm, kind, silent until the cameras rolled. Then he looked out at the world and said, "We all have a part to play. Some give millions, some give a moment, but what matters is not how much. We give with love." Amber reminded me of that. She stood beside him. She couldn't stop the tears. And yet, as the cameras flashed and cheers filled the air, one thing still weighed on her. Her ex was not done. That same afternoon, she got a letter in the mail. No stamp, no name, just one line. "If you think this is over, wait till I show them what you did that night." Her hands went cold. What night? Her mind raced. Was there something she had forgotten? Something he could twist? The storm wasn't over. But now she wasn't just a waitress. She wasn't just a victim. She was a symbol. A fighter. And the world was watching. The night she forgot, Amber sat alone on the balcony of her apartment, staring at the city lights. She clutched the threatening letter in her hand. It felt heavier than paper, heavier than any news headline or public judgment. Her heart thudded with dread. What you did that night. What night? She had replayed every moment in her head, from her breakup with Simon to the day he left. Most nights were quiet, sad, but not criminal, not dangerous. So what was he talking about? The next morning, Cassie returned. She brought 2 more team members and a private investigator working with Keanu's legal circle. They had scanned Simon's online activity and found a few encrypted messages. The words in them were vague, but one file stood out. It was a video clip, 1 minute long, no sound. Just Amber standing in her old living room, sobbing into her hands. "This is it?" Amber asked, confused. "We think so," Cassie replied, "but it's cut, heavily edited, context removed." "That night was when he left," Amber said softly. "He said he was going to the store, then just disappeared." Cassie nodded. "He probably set up the camera to make it look like something else. He's trying to control the narrative, paint you as unstable." Amber looked up, tears forming. "Do you think people will believe it?" Cassie's voice didn't change. "Some might, but we're going to do something better than deny it. We're going to show the full truth." At noon, Keanu called. This time not just to check in, but to invite her to speak at an event. It was being organized by the Phoenix Foundation and Elon Musk's new initiative. It was called Real Voices, a live event where people who had been silenced or shamed would stand up and share their side. "Are you sure I can do this?" Amber asked. "Amber," Keanu said gently, "the world needs to hear you, not for the story they've made up, but for the one you lived." 2 days later, the stage lights were bright. The room was packed with journalists, survivors, activists, and everyday people. A podium stood in the center, and behind it a screen that said one word in soft blue letters: truth. When Amber walked out, the room went quiet. She looked small at first, nervous, pale, unsure. But when she gripped the podium and opened her mouth, everything changed. "My name is Amber Wilcox," she said. "I'm a single mom, a waitress, and for a long time I believed my story didn't matter." She paused, then continued. "A few weeks ago, a man walked into my diner and showed me kindness when I thought no one ever would. But what followed after, fame, attention, support, also brought something else: fear." She told them about the letter, about Simon, about the night she cried alone in her living room, unaware that a camera had been recording her pain. "He said he has proof I'm a liar," Amber said. "But that night, that video, it shows a woman breaking. Not because she was fake, but because she had been left behind." Her voice cracked. "I was mourning the man I thought he was, and realizing the man he truly was." The room was silent. Not even a phone buzzed. You see, people can twist anything. They can take your worst moment and spin it into a weapon, but the truth doesn't shake in the wind. The truth stays. When she stepped down, the entire room rose to their feet. The next day, the clip went viral. Not the one Simon threatened to release, but the one of Amber standing strong and refusing to hide. Celebrities reposted it. Advocates for domestic abuse survivors called her a symbol of hope. But Simon wasn't finished. He filed a lawsuit. Public defamation. He claimed emotional damage, demanded $200,000. The media covered the story as Amber versus the past. But Elon didn't wait. He hired the best legal team in the country and made a public statement. You can't sue someone for surviving. You can't sue someone for healing. And we won't let you sue Amber. Still, the case moved forward. Amber was scared. The courtroom, the cameras, the pressure. It was nothing like standing behind a counter. It was a new battlefield. The trial was set for Friday. On Thursday night, she sat with Lily by the window. The little girl touched her hand and said softly, "Mommy, are you going to be okay?" Amber smiled through tears. "Yes, baby, because people are standing with me now, The next morning, something happened that no one expected. As she entered the courthouse hand in hand with Cassie, a crowd waited. Not reporters, veterans, mothers, waitresses in uniforms, single fathers with their children. They carried signs that said, "We believe Amber." This is what courage looks like. Kindness wins. And then, stepping from the back of the crowd, Keanu Reeves, no cameras, no speech, just him walking beside her, gently placing his hand on her shoulder. As she entered the building, the trial began. Simon's lawyer played the silent video, tried to paint a picture of manipulation, instability, but Amber's lawyer rose with her evidence. The real footage, the testimony from Jake Lawson, financial records showing Simon had tried to sell false stories to tabloids. By the time Amber was called to speak, the courtroom already knew the truth. She stood, steady, clear. "I'm not perfect," she said. "I've been angry. I've cried. But I've never lied. Not to the public, not to myself." When the judge gave the ruling, the air hung still. Case dismissed. No evidence of defamation. Furthermore, the court advises Mr. Wilcox to cease. Harassment or further action may be taken. Outside the courtroom, the crowd cheered. Amber didn't say anything. She just closed her eyes and finally, breathed. The war was over. But something beautiful was just beginning. The ripple becomes a wave. The morning after the courtroom victory was quiet. Amber stood on her small balcony with a warm cup of tea in her hand. The sky was soft and gray, but inside her chest there was sunlight. Peace wasn't loud. It wasn't flashing headlines or roaring applause. Peace, she discovered, was a quiet breath. A still moment, and for the first time in years, she finally had one. Lily was humming to herself inside, playing with the teddy bear that had started it all. Everything had changed, but Amber hadn't lost herself. She looked down at her phone. Dozens of missed messages. People from around the world still writing, still sharing their stories, still thanking her for speaking up. But one message stopped her cold. It was from Keanu. "I'd like you to come to the foundation today. There's something we want to show you." When she arrived, Cassie met her at the entrance. She led Amber through a glass hallway, the walls decorated with handwritten notes from people the Phoenix Foundation had helped. Nurses, truck drivers, single moms, veterans. Real people. As they walked, Cassie said softly, "This next room was built because of you." Amber stepped through the doors. The space inside was warm and open. Sunlight streamed through a skylight. In the center stood a wall carved with her name, Amber Wilcox Center for Resilience and Recovery. She gasped. Beneath her name, a small plaque read, "For the waitress who never stopped standing, even when the world tried to knock her down." Tears spilled down her cheeks. Keanu stepped forward. "We've opened 3 more in your name already," he said. "This one will be the flagship, and we want you to lead it." Amber stared at him, stunned. "Me?" "Yes," he said with a soft smile. "You know what it feels like to fall, and you know what it takes to rise. That makes you the perfect person to guide others." Amber covered her mouth, heart overflowing. In the following weeks, she began working with the foundation, not as a figurehead, but as a mentor. She met women and men from every walk of life, those escaping abuse, those trying to rebuild, those who needed someone to tell them, "You're not alone." And each time, Amber would sit with them, look them in the eyes and say something real. "I know you feel invisible, I did too. But being seen starts with believing you deserve to be." Months passed. She stood at a press conference with Elon Musk and Keanu Reeves as they announced the expansion of the Amber Fund across the country. The world had shifted again. Not because of celebrity drama, not because of a viral clip, but because of one human moment. One waitress. One act of kindness that started a chain reaction. But even with all the attention, Amber never stopped working weekends at the diner. She said it grounded her. Every Saturday, she'd pour coffee for truckers, chat with tourists, and smile at strangers. And one day a new waitress joined. Young, nervous, barely holding it together. Amber didn't say anything at first. She just watched. And when the girl dropped a tray and looked like she might cry, Amber knelt beside her, picked up the silverware, and said softly, "You're doing just fine. We all stumble, just means we're walking." The girl nodded, tears in her eyes, and Amber understood. The torch had been passed. One day, while waiting outside the foundation center, a stranger approached. Older, ragged clothes, worn-out shoes. He looked unsure. Embarrassed. "Are you Amber?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes." He pulled a folded paper from his coat pocket. "I read about you," he said. "I didn't think anyone cared about people like me anymore, but you made me think maybe I'm wrong." She took the paper, opened. It was a letter. Handwritten, shaky penmanship. It read, "Thank you for surviving out loud. Because of you, maybe now I can too." Amber's eyes filled again. She folded the letter carefully. "You're not wrong," she said. "You're right on time." And with that, she opened the door and walked with him into the center. Months later, a documentary about her life aired on streaming platforms. It wasn't about a celebrity moment. It was about everything that came after. The battles, the healing, the people who found courage through her. Keanu Reeves was asked why he did what he did that night in the diner. His answer was simple. "Because she reminded me of my sister." Elon Musk was asked why he supported her. His reply, "Because she reminded me of who I used to be." And Amber? She never called herself brave, or famous, or powerful. She just said, "I'm a mother, a survivor, and a reminder that kindness isn't loud, it's steady, it's real, and sometimes it changes everything." The story ended not with applause, but with another young woman walking into the diner, face tired, voice small, holding a note from someone who told her, "Go, see Amber. She'll understand." And Amber did, because one act of kindness had become a wave.